Hi there, Ronnie here, coming at you with, I guess, an additional to a video I made a few months ago. A few months ago, I was asked by two of my nephews to do a ranking video of all the albums, all the studio albums of my favourite band, which is the British rock band Magnum. And I did all the 22 studio albums as was then. Since then, at the start of the year, two things have happened. The first, very, very sadly, was the death of one of the founding members of the band, the guitarist and songwriter for the band, Tony Clarkin, who passed away on the 7th of January at the age of 77. With, as I said in the other video, with the exception of roughly a half a dozen songs, some of them on the Goodnight LA album and the other two on Breath of Life, Tony Clarkin was the sole songwriter for the band through all those albums. An immensely talented individual. I mean, if you add all the songs from those albums, plus the two albums that Bob Catley, the Magnum's lead singer, when Magnum went into hiatus for a few years, Bob and Tony formed a band called Hard Rain. They released two albums, and most of those again were written by Tony. Most, if not all. I mean, maybe perhaps Sue McCloskey had a hand in a couple. She's the writer credited as co-writer with two of the tracks from Breath of Life. He has well over 200 songs to his credit. And whilst it's very easy to say that Magnum had a very sort of signature sound, you know, you hear a song and you can tell it's Magnum. That doesn't mean that the songs were in any way samey. Quite the opposite, in fact. As I said in the other video, everything from very serious songs about trouble around the world to sort of epic songs of fantasy to all-out rockers, to light and fluffy pop rock numbers, to soulful ballads about love lost, love found, and so on. An incredible body of work, not only of quantity, but also of quality and variety. And in interviews I have seen over the years, a man who seemed to have his feet on the ground, a man who almost underplayed his own talent. Very humble in that regard. Also, he produced the album The 11th Hour, and he produced the album Sleepwalking, those before the hiatus. Since getting back together with Breath of Life right up to the modern day, He produced all the Magnum albums as well. Not only wrote it, apparently he wrote songs for other people as well. He's played on other people's albums, both guitar and I think bass. He's done he was able to do very basic sort of drums and keyboards, and when he was doing demos of the songs for the other band members to hear. Incredibly talented, and sadly very underrated. Fans of the band are well aware of his talent. People who have heard the band and sort of know a lot of the whether they like the music or not, certainly acknowledge the talent. In the last video I said Tony Clarkin was the best songwriter the UK didn't know it had, and I stand by that opinion. The man was an absolute genius with his songs. He will be sorely missed. Obviously, of course, first and foremost by his family, friends, the band members, past and present, other people in the industry, and by fans of the band like myself. I don't know, given that he was the guitarist, the songwriter, the producer, the engine of the band, I don't know what happens to Magnum as a band now. And given that Tony died a fortnight ago, and his funeral was Friday there, I think it's far too early to speculate, so I'm not going to. The band members, I'm sure, will address that situation as and when they feel it is appropriate to do so. And that it will happen when it happens. However, the tragic sort of irony of it all, the sort of tragedy, not only was Tony's passing, but the fact that a few days later, their 23rd studio album, Here Comes the Rain, was released. This is the digipack, which comes with the album and DVD of Magnum live at KK Steel Mill. If, and I refuse to speculate, but if this is to be the last album that Magnum do, it's certainly the last album with Tony's involvement, but if this is to be the last album that Magnum do, in my opinion, they've went out on a high. Just a fantastic album and a wonderful progression of legacy. And what I mean by that is, it is everything, in my opinion, that we expect from a Magnum album. And some people will say, oh, they sort of run in their comfort zone. I don't believe that to be true. But I would tend to say that they play to their strengths. I'll go through the track listing, just my thoughts on the songs. Run Into the Shadows is a fantastic song, Great album opener. They're really good for album openers. Just grabbing your attention and hitting you. And Run Into the Shadows is great. Title track, Here Comes the Rain, follows next. It slows everything down to a more... I've heard some people say ominous tone. I don't think it's that. I think it's a somber reflection on sort of war-torn areas around the world. Magnum are well known for their sort of anti-war songs, and usually there's one or two in an album. There's maybe 4 or 5 on here. Clearly, things that are happening around the world at the moment were on Tony's mind when he was writing the songs, so it's unsurprising. There's a lot of commentary on the world at the moment. I have to say, Bob Catley's vocals, for a man who's in his mid-70s, he puts a lot of singers half his age to shame. Whilst his voice has certainly changed over the decades, of course it has, it's still a fantastic voice. And I he's in fine voice here. Third track, Some Kind of Treachery, is just a sort of sing along, almost sway along kind of chorus, kind of swing. It's a lovely song. It's the one that makes me kind of sing along when the chorus comes up, because I really like it. After the Silence is another good solid rocker. I'm going to come back to 1, 3 and 4 for another reason in a minute, but you'll get to that in a second. The fifth track is the first single release, which is Blue Tango, which is one of the things I found with the Monster Roars was the 2 singles I thought were good, particularly No Stepping Stones, but they seemed odd until I heard them in the context of the album. I'm not saying that Magnum do concept albums, but they do try to have an ebb and flow. And hearing Blue Tango in where it's slotted in the album, it feels more organic. It feels great. It works a lot better. Tony's guitar is stunning in it. Very underrated guitarist. He was never showy or flashy or did sort of, Eddie Van Halen solos or anything. He always wrote, one of the great things about him is he always wrote to the song. The song is what did for him. The Day He Lied is just another big, solid anthem. The backing vocals, Tony Clarkin and Dennis Ward, the bass player. The bass playing is really good in this. Some really, really down in there bass playing. Really like it. I'll get to one other person in a minute with that, but they really help with the harmonies, which gives Bob's voice an even bigger air about it. The drumming on the whole album is fantastic. I like the way The Day He Lied ends with this kind of almost military sort of drumming sort of fading out. Lee Morris is fantastic in it on the album. I have to give special mention to Rick Benton on keyboards. He slotted in. I mean, Mark Stanway was Magnum's keyboardist for the longest time, and you can't knock Mark as a keyboard player. And whenever a band member leaves, you always wonder, will the person coming in be of that same standard? The one I said this in another video. the one thing about Magnum, the quality of the musicianship has never dropped. Rick Benton has slotted in, and this is his 4th album with the band, and he's phenomenal player. Some of the keyboards on this are stunning. Yeah, absolutely amazing. From the keyboard solo on both Tango to some of the other stuff I'll touch on in a minute. Track 7, The Seventh Darkness, which was the 2nd single released. Firstly, I really like the song. I think where it sits in the album is absolutely where it should sit. Again, it goes back to that ebb and flow. However, I'm a little quizzical and confused as to why it was released as a single. Possibly because it had the brass section as similar to No Stepping Stones. And it does have a decent rhythm to it, but I kind of scratched my head when Run Into the Shadows, Some Kind of Treachery, After the Silence, even Borderline to an extent, I think have a slightly more commercial edge to them, radio-friendly edge to them, that would have made them more interesting as singles. I don't know. Clearly, what do I know about singles? All I know is it's a great song. I love the saxophone guitar solo where the sax does a part and the guitar answers, and the sax and the guitar goes back and forth between them. I like that. There's some very nice harmonies on it. It's a really well done track, and my sort of quizzing it as a single doesn't mean I don't like the song. I really do. Broken City has a very sort of subdued kind of bass and acoustic guitar. It mostly has keyboard, harp, and Bob Catley singing. It's very stripped back. I guess people will call it a ballad simply because of the speed of it. I always associate ballads with love songs. So when people say it's a ballad, if it's not a love song, I kind of go, and this is not a love song. It's just a very stripped back, slow tempo number. Absolutely beautiful. My partner Fiona, it's her favourite track on the album, which I thought it would be because she really likes Bob's voice when he's it's just very much quieter. It's powerful, really well done. I Want to Live, I really like the intro. Actually, this is true of the last track, Borderline, as well. I really like the way the songs start and finish. I Want to Live has a really good sort of anthemic kind of soaring chorus to it, which is a great song, but listening to it in the wake of Tony passing seems to take on an extra layer. Now, that I don't think that's intended. I know some people have read that layer in, and certainly when you listen to it, you can see that layer. I don't think it was intended to have, obviously not intended to have that layer to it. But it certainly has kind of gotten that layer. It's still a powerful piece. Lovely, just really, a really good song, and just, really powerful. Final track is Borderline. Borderline is, I love it. I love the kind of Eastern kind of way that it intros, including a kind of wail at the start, which is slightly reminiscent of the Lion King, but you know, that's not a criticism. But I really like the way it builds into the song, and then how it ends, and then rather than finish, a lot of these tracks play to a finish rather than fade out. There's only a couple of them fade out, but Borderline fades out on Rip Benton piano, and it's a wonderful way to end the album. This album, the way that the UK charts are at the moment, the UK charts have the combined chart, and the album charted at number 68. But if you look at UK physical sales charts, it went top 10. If you look at download charts, it's top 10. If you look at a sort of online sales and so on, the only reason, you know, it's top 10, and it went top 10 in the Scottish album charts as well. The only reason it's way down in the full charts is because of streaming services, and the fact that so many of our artists are far more popular in streaming services. And I know it's easy to say, oh well, if we didn't have those, then it would be an amazing, successful album. You could say that about a lot of things, I suppose. But I think this album deserves to be, and it's number one in rock. I think this album deserves to be seen as a classic. In terms of rock and metal, it's going to take a hell of an album, I think, to knock this off the top spot as sort of album of the year. And that's coming from January. As I said, I don't know what the future holds for Magnum, and I won't speculate. But I will say this, if this is to be the final Magnum album, they've done us proud with a wonderful album. Fantastic album. And if you're not a fan of Magnum, but you like AOR melodic rock with prog sensibilities, with a symphonic sound, you'd do a hell of a lot worse than this album. Hell of a lot worse. But I don't think you do much better, apart from maybe some of Magnum's back catalogue. But this is a fantastic album, and the very best tribute you can that can be given to Tony is, my God, did he deliver? My God, did he deliver? I was saddened by the news of his passing. It seems strange that I won't ever see him on stage again. I never got to meet him. I was queuing for a gig, and we'd arrived early enough that they were there for the sound check. And as they came out, I got them to sign my jacket. and that's as much of an interaction, I'm afraid, that this teenage boy ever got with him. But he was a nice person for those few seconds, and there has been so many testimonies on the Facebook page, and rightly so. It is sad that he's gone, and obviously my sympathies and condolences for his family and friends. But he has left a wonderful legacy of music. I guess if there were any justice at all, that he would possibly be honoured at music awards over the coming months to acknowledge, even posthumously, his contribution to music. But it's I don't think we'll ever have another Tony Clarkin. He was unique. He was brilliant. And the world is a slightly darker place for his passing. But he has left us with a wonderful legacy and a fantastic, fantastic new album to remember him by. Thanks very much for watching, guys, and I'll be back soon with another video.